On this edition of the Just in Time podcast with Justin Kutcher.
He's about 6'11", and he's out there shooting threes like it was shooting a free throw. I knew he could play. Once again, this was back in the 90s too, so it wasn't like you're all over the internet looking at somebody. I don't know that I'd seen him. I probably had seen him play somewhere. Obviously, I saw him at Nike camp and those kind of places in the summer. I saw him when he was a sophomore. He's 15 years old. This probably was like 1999, maybe, 98. So I'd never seen him. Never saw him on film, never saw anything. Scouted him somehow, but I know we didn't scout him by film. I remember that. I'd never seen him till we walked on the court and he was warming up and I'm like, whoa. I mean, he's 6'8". Well, he probably weighed 225, 230. Kevin played for us the year before and wanted to come back. Right. Thinking about bringing Kevin home. I'm like, why would you do that? We would have the greatest high school team in the history of basketball. Kevin Durant, Ty Lawson, Nolan Smith, Mike Beasley, all on the same team.
The greatest sports moments happen in seconds, but the stories behind them are timeless. Dive into the mind of the icons who live those moments. No filters, just authentic conversations about the moments that define careers. I'm Justin Kutcher, and this is the Just in Time podcast. Welcome to another edition of the Just in Time podcast with Justin Kutcher. We are very honored to have one of the best high school basketball coaches of all time. I would say a Renaissance man. His name is Steve Smith. He was a longtime coach at Oak Hill Academy. As a matter of fact, his game against Montrose Christian was my first ever television game. And so, Coach, thank you so much for joining me here. It's awesome to see you again. Our friendship has gone back many years now, and I wanted to get you on this podcast because I think you have a unique story. When I said you're a Renaissance man, high school basketball has changed because of you and Oak Hill Academy. So let's go back to the early days. 1985, mouth of Wilson, Virginia. How do you figure that's going to be a basketball?
Well, I was an assistant there for 2 years. We traveled around and on a smaller scale and played in the DC area, Baltimore, metropolitan areas. We were in Virginia. Obviously, we were in Southwest Virginia, so we played down in the Charlotte area, Raleigh. Had to go those places to find games, but I took over in 85 and the president wanted to upgrade and felt like that would help our enrollment, at Oak Hill. And it obviously did that, especially back then. It was, we went from about 125 kids to 200 kids in about 4 or 5 years. And basketball was a way to get the word out there. And probably one of the cheaper sports. We talked about football and other things, but we didn't have the money to do that. So, I was the basketball coach and the athletic director, so we went that route and got things started back then, and we started traveling all over the place. We actually went to Las Vegas in December of 86, and we had to pay our way, and it was very expensive. We won the tournament. There's about 60 teams in it. It used to be called Las Vegas Prep Classic, ran by Larry McKay, and it's defunct now, but it was one of the biggest tournaments in the country back then. We won the tournament, and from that point on, we got our expenses paid everywhere we went, and so we kind of snowballed from there.
Wow. Okay, so on that team, that was
like a year after
Rod Strickland?
We had Brian Shorter, Sean Green out of New York City. Brian was from Philadelphia. He was going to break Wilt Chamberlain's scoring record, and if he stayed there and played like 4 more games his senior year, which he would have, but chose to go to Oak Hill and because we traveled and played a national schedule, and he was worried about getting his grades in order to go to college. And, that's kind of what we were known for back then because we were a small boarding school and small classes and tutors and all the SAT prep. And before anybody else had that stuff, we had it. And so that's how we attracted those guys. But those two were the main ones. They were both parade All-Americans. Brian was a McDonald's All-American. I coached them both in the old Dapper Dan Classic in Pittsburgh, run by Sonny Vaccaro. And those two guys kind of carried us. We finished top 3 or 4 in the country that year, and that kind of got things going.
I was going back and looking at some of the players who you've had in your time at Oak Hill, and you could make an NBA All-Star team
Probably could.
with what you had. Oh, no, no. I mean, okay, I'll just roll off some names right now. The hardest part is going to be like, who would the point guard be? Is it going to be Rondo or Strickland if you're
Yeah.
starting an All-Star team? And then, you go Jerry Stackhouse at the 2. You probably would go Carmelo at the 3, KD at the 4, or if you want to go a big lineup,
Yep.
you go Steven Jackson at the 3, Carmelo at the 4, and KD at the 5. I mean, that's ridiculous when you think about
Yeah.
it. This is what
Well,
you
we
had in
had-
high
And
school.
almost every single year we had a player like that, which, I mean, I was there 37 years as the head coach, and we had 35, I think, McDonald's All-Americans. So I had some years I didn't have one, but some years I had 2. And most years we had 1. It was just, like I say, it started in 85. We had 1 in 85. We had 1 in 86. We went 22 straight years where we had a McDonald's All-American. I don't think anybody's ever done that, or will do that again. But
Holy
we
cow.
did. And that started like in 1991, ran through like 2012 or something, where we had a McDonald's All-American every single year.
So you start this program, you win that tournament in Vegas, and all of a sudden your travel gets paid for. Are you having to go out and recruit these guys to come to Oak Hill, or is now all of a sudden the word of mouth getting
Back
out
in
and
that
they're
day,
contacting
literally,
you?
I just answered the phone and it would ring. I remember telling people one year, this is back in the 90s, that I had about 300 calls, and they're all, I would say most of them were Division I players. They're not all Americans, but most of them are Division I players. Of course, I can't take 300. I got a roster of 12, but there were years I had 12 Division I players on the team. Every single player went D1, even the 7 guys that didn't start. So I had to figure out how to play those guys and get them all minutes and keep them happy. And it really wasn't that hard back then. It got harder late in my career. Because back then the parents would basically turn them over to me and trust me to take care of them and handle their recruiting. I would say the last 12, 15 years that I was at Oak Hill, I didn't do any of that. I just had to, they had handlers and trainers and mentors and parents. Everybody's involved in recruiting, but back in the day, they would bank on me. Whatever I told them, they would go with. And so the college coaches would recruit me more than they'd recruit the players, because they knew if they got to me, they could get the player. And but we had kids go all over.
Right.
It wasn't like we funneled them to one place or 2 places, or we had kids go to about every Division I school you could go to, and met about every coach you could meet, and tried to have relationships with all those guys where they trusted me and knew I would do the right thing for the players. And some guys I felt were better off certain places. And I could find out. Back then, I was the only one guy that could find out, were they being honest? Were they telling you the truth? Who else were they recruiting? Who they got coming back? Who they got sitting out? Because they're not going to tell you that. Nowadays, you know all that, but back then you really didn't. So the parents would lean on me to get all that info to them, and then we'd all try to make the best decision for the player.
How did you find that out? Was it because you had these players who were so good, so all the coaches wanted it? Or did you just develop a trust with these coaches that they would
both.
actually
And
be honest with you?
And back then it was, I wouldn't say it's Wild Wild West. It is now. Now it's all legal, but back then, you knew who was doing what and who would and who wouldn't. And so they knew I was a straight shooter, and so they handled me that way, and they just recruited me normally. They didn't make offers to me about helping them, and they do this for me or do this for the school or this for the player. So they'd come in there, and I think it was kind of refreshing because they could recruit a high level player and they didn't have to cheat to get him. So, or do anything underhanded or do anything that might break an NCAA rule. And, I always tried to do it the right way. I didn't want the players get somewhere and then have a problem, or, not be happy where they were. I don't want them calling me in 2 years wanting to transfer. And, now it's normal to transfer. Kids are leaving every year now, and, it's crazy. But back then you just have to sit out a year. So I didn't want them to have to do that. And when they transfer. So I tried to pick a school out and work with coaches and help the player get to the right place where I knew they'd be happy for 4 years, because most of them had to go 4 years back then.
So tell me this: you built up the relationship with the coaches. and they knew you were going to do everything by the book. But maybe a new coach came in who didn't know that. Without naming names, what was an offer that was given to you saying, hey, you get me this player and I'll do this for you?
Well, I saw a few things without naming names, but really not that much because our situation, how I tried to handle it. But I had a coach that I'd never met before came in one time and he said, can I meet you somewhere and talk off campus? And I'm thinking, well, we got to do that. We can talk in my office. Why we got to go off campus? I said, well, there's a log cabin restaurant about 4 miles from where he was coming. He was coming from Bristol Airport in Tennessee. And so I met him there and he had an assistant with him. This is a good story now. And they're sitting on the front porch. This is an old country kind of restaurant with rocking chairs. And they're sitting there in the rocking chairs. When I pull up, they look at me and they say, man, we don't have any phone service out here. They're on their cell phones. This would be early 2000s. And so
Okay.
that's part of the story, that they're telling me there's no phone service. So we go inside, we have dinner, and we get done eating. And the head coach looks at the assistant and he says, don't you have some phone calls to make? I'm thinking, he just told me an hour ago that his phone didn't work, right? But anyway, he left the table. So that leaves the head coach and myself, just the two of us sitting there. And I didn't understand why I asked him to go get on the phone because I knew his phone didn't work. But anyway, I knew later what happened. But he asked me about, what would it take to get this player? And I just said, just recruit him. And, here's the schools that are recruiting him. And because they just jumped in on, this was in the springtime and it was kind of late. And I think they were new on the job and they just jumped in there and wanted to get involved with him. And so anyway, he asked me, he goes, what would you do if somebody gave you $50,000? I went, just give me $50,000. Why would somebody do that? But I knew what was going on. But and then I said, well, I wouldn't accept it. I said, I've been here 20 some years and never took a dime for a player and I'm never going to. And he said, well, what happens if somebody gave $50,000 to the school? I said, well, if somebody wants to make a donation to the school, we'd be glad to give them a tax write-off. And so I was kind of playing it off. And I said, he looked at me and he said, oh, we won't need a tax write-off. It'd be straight cash. I said, yeah, you don't want a paper trail? No, I was thinking to myself, this is what the guy don't want, a paper trail. And anyhow,
Right.
In the end, I told him, I said, look, mom's on welfare, food stamps. You need to recruit her, not me. And just to finish the story, the kid visited there and he committed to that school. So I don't know what happened, but
Mom was no longer on
I plead the
welfare nor
fifth.
food stamps. See, that's a great story, and that's the underbelly of recruiting that people have heard rumors about but not sure.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't need names, but those stories, those resonate. Going back, just looking at some of the players, I mentioned Rod Strickland before. Who do you think was the player that put you guys on the map, or all of a sudden you realize, you know what?
Yeah,
I think we
probably
got something
Rod.
here.
And then, Rod was 1984, 85. He was there. And that back then, and he went to DePaul. DePaul back then was kind of America's team. They were on WGN out of Chicago and Ray Meyer and Joey Meyer and all that. So I would think he was the first, and he came down from New York City. And you want a story on him, how he got to Oak Hill? This is way before the internet, way before anything, except you get on the phone and ask somebody how. I'd call Bob Gibbons or Tom Kachaska and say, do you know this kid? How good is he? And I'd kind of take their word for it because we didn't go out and see these kids. It wasn't like we were recruiting them and saw them play all summer. And AAU wasn't big like that. They had an AAU tournament, national AAU tournament, but none of this. The shoe companies didn't have a summer league, spring league, and none of that. And but we get a call from Lou Delmeda, who ran the Gauchos in New York. And he says, I got a player for you. And I said, who is it? And he tells, I don't know who Rod Strickland is. And he tells me Rod Strickland. So I got to go look him up. And so I called Bob Gibbons, that's the guy I used to call more than anybody. And I called Tom too, because Tom's from New York City and he would tell you exactly I mean, whatever Tom told you, that was the ability of the player. If he said he could play or couldn't play or what he could do, his strengths, weaknesses, I trusted Tom. But I called both of them, and they told me how good he was. Well, he shows up. We had a point guard from Kentucky who ended up he cut signed and went to Cincinnati, so he was a high level player, but he was a junior.
Yeah.
But we needed a name player like Rod. So anyway, Rod comes in about a week after school starts, and this kid's already been here, the other kid. And I had a coach in there, Frank Marino, who was assistant in Detroit, and he was from New York City. And he asked me, "Is this your team here?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Anybody else missing?" I said, "Well, we got one coming tonight." And there was probably 10 coaches sitting in there, Division I coaches. And he said, "Who is it?" And I told him Rod Strickland. He about dropped his pants. He said, "Rod Strickland." He said, do you know how good he is? I go, "I've heard he's good, but I've never seen him play." But he goes, "Coach, when he gets in this gym, he will own the place." I go, "Nah, we got good players." I had 5 or 6 Division I players that year. And I said, "Yeah, right." And sure enough, he walks in the gym, and this is early September, so we're just basically playing pickup. And he goes out there and he's going against another point guard, and it's really bad. I mean, he makes him look like he's a junior high player. So after the 2-hour workout, we did some drills and so forth after that for the coaches. But the other point guard comes in, wants to go home. I talked him into staying, and because I said, "Look, we need players. We can't go with one point guard anyway. You're a junior. You're going to play. I'm going to play you."
Right.
So I did play him a lot that year, but Rod did own the gym the year he was there, and we got things. The other kid played his senior year and was our point guard, and like I say, he went to Cincinnati. Rod graduated that year, and he went to DePaul. So we had 2 high-level players. But I'd say Rod probably was the first one. We had another kid, Chris Brooks, out of New York, who most people don't know, but he was a McDonald's All-American. And Brian Shorter the very next year. So we had 3 All-Americans in a 2-year period, and that's how things kind of got started. But I think most people still know Rod when they talk about Rod. Knew that he went to Oak Hill, even though it was 40 years ago.
So I mean that just amazes me, right? Like I think about New York City kids migrating. So the first one I think about is Lou Alcindor, right? Goes from New York to LA, UCLA. People are like, "How does that happen?" Then you got a bunch of guys going from New York City to Chapel Hill. But how does a kid like Rod Strickland go from New York City, shows up? For those of you who have not been to Mouth of Wilson, Virginia, it's not easy to get to. Does he show up at this school and is he like, "What did I sign up for?" Or is he buying in right away?
He was pretty much, what am I doing here, and how did I get here, and when can I go home? So he honestly basically stayed. I mean, he lived in the dorm, obviously, on campus because we're a boarding school. But of all the players early on, he would be at my house every day, wanting food, wanting to watch TV, hang out with my family. So I wouldn't say we adopted him, but he pretty much, he wouldn't have made it if we didn't do that for him. Some guys are fine in the dorm. Now the kids when I was there my last 15, 20 years, they just playing PlayStation on Wi-Fi. They had cell phones. We didn't have that back then. So kids would get bored. And so they'd come out. A lot of the players would hang out at my house, watch TV, be out there all weekend. We'd make food for them and watch ball games. And we'd take them to football games and so forth in the fall. And when we didn't have basketball games, we'd go to basketball games in the winter too. We go to Wake Forest, Virginia Tech. Those are schools that are within about an hour and a half from Oak Hill. So we would try to get them off campus where they would not be so bored. But we traveled a lot with the basketball team too during the season. So, but it is, it's in the Blue Ridge Mountains and it's isolated. That the campus is its own little community. You got a school store, you got a church on campus, they go to school right there. They're 200 yards from the gym. And so, back then, really, they didn't get off campus that much. Nowadays, they're coming and going like these guys have no idea how it used to be. I try to tell these guys, you can't make it through a year here. And I got guys that were here 2 and 3 years, and 40 years ago when it was really hard to go to school, especially when you're from a metropolis area, which most of our players were. Back then I would say the majority of our players came from New York, Philly, and Baltimore, D.C. So Then it branched out. We started getting kids from all over the country. LA, we had international students, international players. But early on, it was mainly the East Coast metropolitan areas, and that's where the talent was. I mean, the players in New York City were second to none. Now you don't hear many players coming out of New York, even as big a place it is, because they usually leave early and there are other schools out of state and away from the city. But back then, I mean, I remember years when 1990, we had a kid, Anthony Cade, came down from New York, and there were 6 McDonald's All-Americans from New York City that year. And they only had 20 back then. So 6 of the 20 were from New York. And
Wow.
you don't hear that much anymore. I mean, there's a lot of players in New York, obviously, because it's a big area, but they usually leave, go to private schools, and then you don't even know where they're from because you just think they're from that area where the school is. But you know, it's changed a lot through the years, obviously.
But and that again goes back to you. I mean, being the trendsetter, because you know, if you go back and think about New York City, Stephon Marbury, right? He stayed in Brooklyn, went to school there. Kenny Smith, Kenny Anderson, like all these guys, and then all of a sudden, you get players now coming to Oak Hill, players going to St. Pat's or Montfort or you name it, and all these schools come up, and now all of a sudden they leave New York
Yeah.
City, like you said, and they travel. For me, I was just kind of wondering, who was the coach that first came to Oak Hill when you said, you know what, this is going to work. If this coach is coming to see a player here, we've got something.
Back then, the Big East was huge. It just started like in the early 80s. And when those guys started coming in, like when I first got to Oak Hill, had probably our best early teams were like, you know, 85, 86 right in there. Rolly Massimino, Lou Carnesecca. I remember sitting in the living room with Lou and Rolly, and Lefter Drizel would come down from Maryland. You started getting the ACC guys. Dean Smith would show up. They all came like the first, second year I was there. And obviously that told me we had the right players. They wouldn't be coming there. And so I mainly remember all the Big East guys. Paul Evans was at Pittsburgh. Trying to think who, PJ Carlissimo. I remember PJ coming in on a Saturday night going to a social. We called them socials at Oak Hill on weekends for the kids. He hung out at social one Saturday night. And just those guys, you know, see them walk in when I'm just used to watching them on TV playing, you know, NCAA games or whatever, was kind of a big deal. And, you know, our kids, our students would go crazy when those coaches would show up. They were like folk heroes, you know, and basketball gods when they came in there. But I kind of got used to it after a while. I don't remember the very first. I remember the first coach I met was John Calipari. He was an assistant at Kansas. I told this story to him about 2 weeks ago when I saw him, and he was probably 24 years old, and he was assistant to Larry Brown. I didn't know who he was. And he was recruiting a kid we had. I was an assistant coach at this time. It was in 1983. We had a kid, Roy Brow, who was 6'11" from the Virgin Islands. He ended up going to Virginia Tech. But Coach Cal came in there, and when he left, I go, who is that guy, and how old is he? And Larry Davis was the head coach at the time. I was his assistant. And Larry looked at me, goes, that's John Calipari, and I didn't know who he was. He said, well, I worked at camp with him at 5-star. That's how I know him, and that's kind of how he got the job in Kansas, because, I mean, it's hard for a guy 23, 24 to get a job like that now and be on the road at a major university, but he did back then, and he was the very first college coach I met, but I didn't know who he was, so it wasn't like when those other guys came in, I knew them right away. But, you know, we had I can't think of many coaches that didn't come through there, and I'd always tell them, especially when I came for the first time, I said, you've never been anywhere to recruit till you've been to Mount Wilson. You can't say you're a recruiter if you haven't been to Oak Hill Academy in Mount Wilson, Virginia.
Okay, so you talk about Cal being a young coach.
Oh.
You're a young coach, right? At this time, you're a young coach, and now you have the titans of the industry coming in, sitting in your living room. Are you trying to be yourself? Or are you trying to, you know, kind of fake it and be like, you know exactly what you're talking about? How are you handling those situations?
Trying to remember back then, because I'm old now. I forget a lot, but I just tried to be myself. And obviously, I was a young coach, and I obviously wasn't probably as good a coach as I thought I was. I noticed that when I look back, I'm like, man, I didn't know what I was doing. I took that job when I was 28 years old, didn't know what I was doing, but I wasn't going to turn it down. And I kind of learned, flew by the seat of my pants, and I went to clinics and all that kind of stuff in a younger age before I even got into coaching. And my dad was a coach, so I always wanted to coach. But I learned a lot from those guys too. I would pick their brains when they'd come in, talk to them about offense, defense, whatever, and how they played, their style of play. And I probably drove some of them crazy. I don't know, but I just tried to learn as much as I could early on from those guys. And when they were there, I just was myself. And I think after I met a couple guys, I was like, okay, calm down. Don't get so hyped up. You just met Lefty Driesell or whoever you met. Yeah.
Dean Smith, Coach K,
I get
Luke
a little nervous when they show up for
Carnesecca.
practice. I said, they're probably evaluating me. Can I coach? And I've got this great player here. And what kind of coach am I? But because they would come back then, they would just sit and watch your whole practice and stay on. They'd stay on campus for 3 and 4 hours. Some of them, they don't do that now, obviously, but back then that's what they did. I remember being in practice one night when Dean Smith was there, and he told me I probably can't stay the whole practice. We used to practice at 7:30 at night. We'd go from 7:30 to 9:30. We had study hall at 6, and it was a boarding school, so it's a different setup. And I tried to keep them. I like practicing at night just because it was keep them busy, and they wouldn't get so bored being in Mouth of Wilson. But Dean Smith's in there one night, and he says, I'll probably have to leave in the middle of practice. But he stayed for about an hour and a half, got up. We had a water break, whatever. He waved at me and headed out the door. And so it wasn't odd. Sometimes you'd have 15 coaches in there watching practice. Back then, that was kind of the norm. They would come in, meet with the player, do an in-home visit like after school, hang around for lunch, eat in the cafeteria, and then come to practice. So, I remember one day when we had Bobby Knight came in at 9 a.m, stayed till 3 p.m. I took him to a private airstrip about 15 miles away, dropped him off, picked up Rick Pitino, brought him back for that night. So, we had traffic like that coming through the campus all the time. And, head coaches were coming out, some assistants obviously too, but back then it seemed like the head coaches were always in the gym watching guys work out. And we had coaches come in the fall just to see who we had on our team, back in the 80s, because obviously everybody knows now when your roster and you've got social media and you got you're pumping your programs out and your players out on social media, and everybody's got websites, and you didn't have any of that back then. But smaller schools, especially, they would just drop by. Division I, loaded D1 schools with mid D1s would just drop by and just say, who you got on your roster this year? I'd give them a roster and a schedule. They'd sit there and watch the kids work out. And, it helped a lot of kids get scholarships that maybe wouldn't have just because they were at Oak Hill.
So I think about Dean Smith having to leave. I'm guessing this is later, but obviously Jerry Stackhouse played for you. Was this after he had already, had Jerry Stackhouse come through?
And, yeah.
Really? Oh my gosh. Okay.
And, Jeff McInnis and Stackhouse the same year, and they basically visited the same schools. They were really good friends, and so they were recruited by NC State, Wake Forest, North Carolina. I think Jerry visited Kansas, and Jeff didn't, but I called him Touche. Jeff McInnis' nickname was Touche. After Touche the Turtle, it was a cartoon way back in the day. That his mother said he always watched it, so she started calling him Touche. But so those two guys, and they were
That's
all
awesome.
This is a good story too. They were all set to go to NC State with Buzz Peterson, and Les Robinson was the head coach, and Buzz recruited him hard. Well, Buzz is a Carolina alum. He was coaching at State, and they had visited 4 schools. They had, back then you could make 5 visits. I think the same rule applies now, but their 5th visit was going to be to Carolina, but they were ready to commit to NC State. And Phil Ford and Dean Smith recruited them at Carolina, and they weren't even going to visit. And they end up deciding, and I don't think Buzz wanted them to visit because he knew if they visited there, that could be a problem.
He knew.
So that was their last visit. But they came to me and said, we want to go to Chapel Hill this weekend. Okay. So I called and set the visit up, and I called Buzz and tell Buzz, might have a problem here. I don't know. But they both said, no, we're going to State. We're going to State. And Carolina's got too many players, whatever. I think that's the main thing they were saying to me was Carolina's loaded. And they were back then. They got I mean, they had big time players. They still do, but back then it was, I mean, whoa, every year. And so they go visit. They tell, we're not going to go there, coach. We're just going to visit. Okay. They get back Sunday night. They knock on my door. I lived on campus, and they said, Coach, we're going to Carolina. I go, oh, God. I looked at them. I go, who's telling Buzz? Y'all got to call Buzz and Les Robinson. And I don't want to be in the middle of this one. And that's how they ended up going to Carolina. It was their last visit. And they almost didn't even visit. But, of course, now they're Tar Heel blue, through and through. And but Buzz told me, he goes, if they go to Carolina, we got a problem. Because I know, I've been there. I went to school there. And they're going to want to go to Carolina. And sure enough, that's what happened on that visit. But, yeah, so Dean was a great guy. I played golf with him a few times and played with Phil Ford, who wasn't very good, but he had a good time. And I always, back then, the coaches would always want to play when they come on campus. They'd say, let's go play golf. And they don't give you that much time anymore. But back then they did. I remember we had a bunch of coaches coming in on a Monday. So I got on the weekend and saw who was coming. We called everybody. We had two foursomes over the course where I played, Jefferson Landing. And we had Jim Herrick from UCLA, Paul Evans from Pitt, Dean Smith played, PJ Carlissimo played, Phil Ford played. Can't remember who all the guys were, but there was seven big time coaches and me. We played two foursomes, had two good matches, and it was. But that's how it was in the old days. You know,
what was the money on the line for those?
They had
for
some
those
little
two
money
matches?
games going, and I remember Coach Smith didn't win, and he came to practice that night, and he tried to give me some money, and I didn't take it. And I said, Coach, man, no problem. We just played golf. No, don't worry about it. And when I went in my office after the practice, he had left, and there was a note on my desk. And it said, Coach, when I play golf, I always pay my debts. And the money was sitting on my desk. So I did keep the note.
That's awesome.
I probably spent the money. I don't know.
Yeah. That's so cool. You know, I'm just sitting here going, you had Cherry Stackhouse and Jeff McInnis as your backcourt.
And our center that year was McDonald's, he ended up going to Carolina 2 years later. So I had three Carolina recruits on that one team. Obviously, we were 36-0 that year. We didn't lose a game. Yeah.
Really? You didn't lose a game? Shocker.
We coached those guys pretty well.
Now, do you coach them or do you just sit down and say, go?
McInnis I thought he was one of the better point guards I ever coached. And I looked the other day, somebody asked me, I thought we had 10. We had 11 point guards playing the NBA that played at Oak Hill while I was there. And he's probably not, when people say Jeff McInnis, some people know him, some people don't know him. But, you know, in our area, they knew him because we're in Virginia and ACC country. But I'd say nationally, they didn't know him like some players. When you say Rondo and Lawson and you start naming Rod Strickland and all these other guys. But he was a great player and very smart. And so he basically ran the team during games, and I'd sit over and act like I was coaching because he knew what was going on. And I had Stackhouse and McInnis and Alex Sanders, who went to Louisville, Sunshine Smith, Jermaine Smith, who went to UNLV. We had 10 Division I. That was one of those years they talk about having two players at every position. I did have two players. I had 10 D1 players, and there was two from every position. 2 point guards went D1, two guards, all the way down through our 5-man. And so that was one of the best teams, obviously, we ever had. Might have been our best team. I don't know. People always ask me. I don't try to pick a team out, but that team was loaded. That was in 92, 93. So I'd been there, the head coach. That was about my 7th year. That team we had great teams before that, but nobody was considered to be like number one in the country. And that was the first year we were national champions. And that was the team really they got it going too, as far as a team, you know, not just a player, but because we had so many players on that team. And that team was, wow. I mean, I remember coaches coming in, watching us practice, and they'd say, you guys are better than we are. And And they would and they would say,
and they weren't lying.
Right now, I know they're high school kids, but that's a Sweet 16 team. Y'all could make the Sweet 16. I don't know if we were that good, but we did have full-grown men on a high school team, really, because all the guys we had that year were really they seemed older, they seemed more mature the way they played. They looked physically older. They weren't older, but they looked. I mean, we got into weights back then, and most schools weren't doing that. So high schools. And those guys, they look like a college team instead of a high school team.
You know, for me, with Jerry Stackhouse in college, I think about that reverse dunk that he threw down,
Duke.
Against Duke. He goes on to get drafted by the Philadelphia 76ers, and it's Philadelphia because he signs with Fila, and there are all those things. But again, the players that you had come through, the players that you coached, Carmelo, Kevin Durant, Josh Smith, who went straight from high school to the pros. The son of Jop went straight from high school to the pros. Those are the big names. Who was the guy that you came to your school and surprised you? Like, oh, I didn't realize he was this good.
Rondo's one, because if you look him up in high school, he was actually, I think when he came to Oak Hill, he was the 13th ranked point guard in the class, in his senior class. And he went from 13 to 1 or 2. He was 1, but they had a kid in front of him, Dwayne Washington, I think it was his name, from Florida, that ended up going to Memphis. He's the young man that got fouled at the end of the game and missed all 3 free throws. I don't know if you remember that. To go to the NCAA tournament, all he had to do was make one. He didn't make any of them. But he wanted to come to Oak Hill, too. And his dad talked to me about him coming. I told him I had a point guard coming named Rajon Rondo. He never heard of him. He goes, well, he's not as good as my son. I go, well, he's not rated as high as your son. But I watched him play. He's pretty good. And I'm not saying he's better than your son, but, well, I take Rajon instead of him because at that time, I didn't want to take 2 point guards that were that level. I wouldn't mind taking another kid if he was like a low D1 guy or whatever, backing him up. But to have 2 kids that were probably, I thought, were going to make McDonald's, even though Rajon wasn't rated that high. Sure enough, at the end of the year, we went undefeated. Rajon made the McDonald's game. I'm sitting at the McDonald's game, and Dwayne's dad's sitting directly behind me. And he taps me on the shoulder. He goes, you were right. He's pretty good. I said, I told you, but I didn't know he was this good. And that was the year I had Josh Smith. And back then, all these pro scouts would come to practice. I probably had more pro scouts coming in there than college coaches. And they would tell me, they all come to see Josh because it was a known fact that he wasn't going to college.
Right.
He was going to go to the NBA and put his name in the draft. And they'd all leave telling me, he's not your best player. Not knocking Josh, because Josh was a great player. But they go, that kid out there is your best player. And I go, I'm not going to say he is or he isn't, because I don't want to show favoritism one over the other, but he is really good. And so Rajon's one. I had a kid way back about my 3rd year at Oak Hill, Alex Blackwell, who you probably never heard of. And he wasn't rated by anybody.
No.
He just came there. He wasn't doing well academically. He was from New Jersey, and he went to Monmouth College. That's who recruited him. And Ken Dempsey was the coach there, and he and I were friends. And when he came down there, he was committed to Monmouth. And so he stayed loyal to him. And he had a good year for us, averaged like 20 points and 9 rebounds, and led the team in scoring and rebounding. And but he still wasn't rated or ranked by anybody, and he sure wasn't an All-American. And he went to Monmouth and made All-Conference, was MVP, and signed a contract with the Lakers and played with the Lakers in the NBA for 4 or 5 years. So he's one that I never thought would be that good, that turned out to, there's guys you get, they're going to be NBA players unless they get sideways or get injured, or, just get sidetracked by doing the wrong things and hanging with the wrong people or whatever. But he's a guy I would never say would play in the NBA. And so there's guys that make it because they work hard, and there's guys that don't make it because they don't do the things you need to do, that they're maybe more talented. But I've seen all that through the years.
You just said before that you didn't want to take 2 point guards who were so highly rated, 2 guys who could be McDonald's All-Americans. Who's a player that you said no to that afterwards
Oh,
you're like,
that's easy.
oh,
That's easy. Kevin
I
Garnett.
screwed that up.
He visited. Kevin Garnett
Real?
visited.
Oh, wait,
He visited
what?
our campus for his junior year in the summer. Wanted to come, and he visited our campus before he's in the summer of his senior year. So he visited campus twice, and I don't know if you remember watching back then. He was kind of demonstrative. Yeah, he was kind of
He went to America.
demonstrative and vocal on the court, but I never heard anything negative about him. My president at the time, somehow he'd heard something. I don't know what he heard, but so when I brought him in, I had to take him to the president's office, and we sit in there, we talk, and he ends up, he doesn't like him for some reason. I don't remember what the reason was, but I didn't take him. And then he came back the next year, and the same thing happened. I remember being at Nike camp and being interviewed by somebody, and he walks behind me in the camera, and as I'm being interviewed, Coach, I want to go to Oak Hill. I'm like, man. And I end up, all that goes on, and he was in the gym playing shooting horse and playing games with my son, who was about 10 years old. I remember that. And I wish I would took pictures of that, but I didn't. But, and then I coached him in an all-star game after his senior. I'm thinking, man, was I out of my mind not taking this guy? It really wasn't me, but it's up to me. I probably would have, it's just me, I would have taken him. And the other one was Gilbert Arenas. He'll probably say he doesn't remember this, but I got tons of calls from his people that wanted him to Oak Hill. I didn't take him. And then Allen Iverson was another one. Allen Iverson was from Virginia Beach. He got into a little trouble, if you remember the bowling alley incident.
Yeah.
And so that's the main reason that he didn't come. Boo had called me, Boo Williams. I don't know if I ever talked to his family, but Boo had called me and said, this guy needs to get out of the area. And I wish we would have taken Allen too, probably. Those three stand out because they were NBA superstars, NBA All-Stars, and great players. But there was probably more. I don't remember. I remember there's guys that have said, I see guys sometimes and they'll say, I wanted to go to Oak Hill. I called you. Do you remember that? And I go, I don't remember that. But, there was so many people calling back then wanting to come. Like I mentioned, you couldn't take everybody that wanted to come. And I didn't think some guys would fit in Malcolm Wilson. And then sometimes you'd have a player, like I mentioned, really was only the point guard position is the only place I wouldn't take two players. If I had wings or guards, two guards, big guys, I would take two because you don't know what's going to happen. Somebody might get hurt. Somebody might be ineligible. Somebody might want to go home. But that never happened much, really, considering where we were. In Malcolm Wilson, people always ask me, how do you keep them there? I can't remember but a couple guys that ever walked in my office and said, I don't think I can do it. In all the years I was there, once they got there and got familiar with everybody and the team got going, it's kind of a family atmosphere, and we started playing games and everybody's fine then. You just got to get through the first month.
I'm still sitting here like in awe and shocked. Kevin Garnett, because he was the first one to go straight from high school to the NBA. And then to think about Allen Iverson, having been from Virginia Beach, went to Georgetown. John Thompson basically saved his life. And then, Gilbert Arenas, that's Gilbert, but holy cow. The names that you reeled off right there.
Yeah.
Two of them were Hall of Famers. Like not just All-Stars, but Hall of Famers. That's amazing.
I kind of kicked myself
that's so
now,
cool.
But hey, I coached enough.
So what was it like? What was it like with Kevin Garnett when he's shooting hoops with your son?
Well, I was amazed watching him. He's about 6'11", and he's out there shooting threes like it was shooting a free throw. And I knew he could play. Once again, this was back in the 90s too, so it wasn't like you're all over the internet looking at somebody. I don't even know if there was I'm sure there was an internet, but I didn't have a computer back then. I don't know that I'd seen him. I probably had seen him play somewhere. Obviously I saw him at Nike camp and those kind of places in the summer when I'd be working, and they'd be there. And, but I didn't know how skilled he was until I saw him in there, and I'm like, man, this guy's like a guard, and he's 6'11", and he's a freak of nature out there. So I mean, I kicked myself for not getting a chance to coach him because, and I had him, like I say, and I remember in the game I had him, the All-Star game, it was a 1-point game. I had Ron Mercer on that team. I had Stephon Marbury, Garnett. They were all on the team I was coaching, and we're down 1 with like 10 seconds to go, and we call timeout, and we're trying to win the game. And I don't remember who was on the other team, but it's an All-American thing, so everybody out there is a high major player. And I'm drawing up a play to get the ball to Kevin. And, you don't want to fit in anybody else either because the other guys can play, but they're not stupid either. They know he's the best player on the floor at the time. And he stopped me in mid-sentence. He goes, Coach, forget that. I don't know the language he used, but I just remember him saying, forget that play. Just get me the ball. We'll win the game. So I had to explain to him, Kevin, that's what we're doing. We're running this play to get you the ball, okay? So he was like, just throw me the ball. We'll win the game. And sure enough, he scored and we won the game. But I don't know if we ran the play I designed or if they just threw in the ball. I don't remember, but I just remember winning the game.
And then it's funny because those guys paired up in Minnesota, Stephon Marbury and Kevin Garnett. And honestly, I think if you were to ask both those two, their greatest regret was not staying together. I mean, they could have been a modern day Stockton and Malone, more athletic, just so explosive. Oh my gosh, I would have loved to have watched those two together.
And there's guys who've split up and probably wish they'd stayed with each other, and those two would have been awesome together for a long period of time.
Like if you look at the NBA, and I know we're getting off track here, but think about some of those tandems. If Garnett and Marbury stay together, if Shaq and Penny Hardaway stay together, the whole trajectory of the NBA and its history is different.
Yeah, everybody thinks of Penny and Shaq. And you've seen the 30 for 30 or whatever, and that's wild. Those guys playing together would have been something else for years. I mean, it could have been
and
10,
people
12,
forget
15-year thing like Stockton Malone.
I mean,
a long time.
I mean, I can remember that Marbury and Garnett, their first playoff series, they lost to the Houston Rockets. And Charles Barkley was on that team. And I can remember watching that series and Barkley going up to them afterwards, taking them two together and just being like, you guys are going to be something. Like, keep working at it. You're going to be something. And then, I hate to say it, but ego got in the way and
whatever.
And that was that. Yeah. I mean, it just stinks. So, okay, you've coached some ridiculous people. This is so much fun. I know there's a guy that got away, Kevin Durant. And I mentioned this at the very top of this podcast. The first game that I ever called on TV was Oak Hill 41-0 against Montrose Christian on Oak Hill. Correct me if I'm wrong. You had Ty Lawson, Nolan Smith. Was it Jeff Adrian?
Michael Beasley.
Jeff Allen. Michael Beasley.
Landon Milburn went to Maryland.
And then
he was on that team. Anthony Wright went to Michigan. He was on that team. He's the one that didn't block out at the end of the game.
You don't remember this one at all, do you? And then for Montrose, they had Kevin Durant, Gravis Vasquez, Taj Ito, Adrian Bowie, I think. Yep. And I had gotten the phone call that I was going to do this game 2 days before. Like, they needed someone to do the game. And I was, I didn't know. I knew about Oak Hill Academy, right? And I remember I was given your phone number to call you. And here I was, like a 24-year-old kid, like, okay, like, oh my gosh. And you were awesome with me. And you told me about different players and this and that. I didn't realize who Kevin Durant was at that time. Ty Lawson was the stud, apparently, in that game. But that game was one of, to this day, best games I've ever been a part of. What did you take away from that game besides?
It was one of the best games I was involved in, but One was the officiating wasn't very good. I don't know if you remember, Ty Lawson got cramps in both legs early in the fourth quarter. We had a 15-point lead late in the third quarter, and he started getting cramps, and I was taking him in and out, and I'm like, you got to play. If you don't play, we're in trouble. I mean, we had Nolan Smith still. We slide him over to point. Wasn't like we couldn't play, but things started going south a little bit in the fourth quarter. They started making shots, and I remember it was a 9-point game, probably 3 or 4 minutes to go, and Kevin shoots a three from about 25 feet. And it's an air ball, and Ty Lawson was literally 5 to 6 feet from him. He was the closest player to him, and they call a foul. And Ty looks at me, and I look at him, and I'm like, what was that? And so anyway, he makes 3 free throws. And so now it's a 6-point game. We come down and don't score. I called the point guard who you mentioned. I called him Judge Ito after the O.J. Simpson trial. He hadn't scored. He nails a 3 in the corner. Now it's a 3-point game. Now we have been ahead the whole game. Now the players are kind of looking at me like, uh-oh, what's happening? It's down to a 3-point game, and there's like 2.5 minutes to go. And I remember late in the game, it was a 2-point game. Nolan, there was no shot clock or anything back then. And so we had it with about a minute to go, and we were not going to take anything but a really good shot. And Nolan drove to the basket and got his shot blocked. They come down and score. Now it's a tie game. I'm going, oh, my gosh, this is crazy. And we can't lose this game. It's the last game of the year. We were on spring break, literally on spring break. Our school, we shut down our school Thursday. We drove up to D.C. 5 of my players, 5 of the top 6 were all from D.C. that year. Jeff and Beasley, Mike Beasley, Ty Lawson, Anthony Wright, all those guys, Landon Milburn, were all from the D.C. area. And they were basically on spring break. I mean, they in their minds, too. And I was just trying to get through this one game. We win the game. There's no national tournament. This was it. We win the game. We're the mythical national champs, champion, hands down. We've been number one from day one. And so anyway, it gets to be the last play of the game. I think we were down. I think it was tied or we were down up one of the two. But coming out of the timeout, I remember the last thing I told him was make sure you rebound the ball on the shot. We're gonna guard. We're gonna defend. They're not gonna get a good shot because we were a really good defensive team that year too. Lo and behold, we go out. They shoot a shot late in it. I think Kevin took the shot, and I think we doubled him, and it comes off the rim on the far side, and Beasley and Anthony Wright just stand there, literally just stand there. They don't block out. One's at the elbow. Anthony Bowie's the one that tipped it in. He comes from the elbow straight to the rim, tips it in. I remember Beasley looking at me like, did we just lose the game? Yeah, we just lost the game. You didn't block out. We just lost the game. Our undefeated season is gone. So I hated to lose the game, but it was a great game. And you think of the players that played in that game. Of course, Kevin played for us the year before and wanted to come back. Right. And his mother, it wasn't his mother, but it was really stepdad, called me in the summer and said, thinking about bringing Kevin home. I'm like, why would you do that? We would have the greatest high school team in the history of basketball. Kevin Durant, Ty Lawson, Nolan Smith, Mike Beasley, all on the same team. And he said, well, he can't be the number one player if he stays there because you've got too many players. I'm like, he's number 2 in the country right now. Greg Oden is number 1. Let me explain things to you.
Right.
Greg Oden's going to be number 1 if he averages 3 points a game. He's been number 1 since 8th grade. He's a 7-foot center from Indiana. And I don't care what Kevin does. He can go to any school in America. He's going to be the 2nd-ranked player next year. Because Greg Oden was just like, he was supposed to be like the next Alcindor or whatever. And sure enough, that's what happened. Kevin was the 2nd-ranked player, and I kept telling him, what does it matter? In the end, it'll all wash out when on down the line in 10 years, we're going to know who's better than who, which it has. Oden got hurt and never really played much. And Kevin's, one of the greatest players to ever play the game. So who cares if you're 1 or 2 in high school? But that's why, and he wanted to come back. I mean, I saw him during that year before we played that game, I saw him at the Hall of Fame in Springfield, Mass. They were playing before we were. He was at Montrose Christian then, and he would come up to me and tell me how much he missed Oak Hill and he wished he would have stayed there. And but once that game happened, he was playing for Montrose because I don't remember how many points he had, but he played a great game. And Kevin Durant's Kevin Durant. But I remember when I start remembering games and remembering guys, I remember a lot of things, and I just remember feeling bad that he wasn't on our team because that game would never happen if he was on our team. They wouldn't have scheduled the game, and we scheduled the game late. That game wasn't even on the schedule until like January, and so I kicked myself for playing the game. Period. We should have won the game. We were the better team, but we didn't, and that happens. It's a 32-minute high school game.
If I'm not mistaken, there's been a
Probably.
book written about the game, and they say it's arguably the greatest high school game ever
We played at Coolidge High School,
and
yes, obviously it wasn't their home court, but it was in the area, and all my players were from that area too, so it made sense to play the game. And the gym was packed. It was sold out, packed. I don't remember how many it held, but it's kind of an old gym. The floor, I remember the floor being. My guys were complaining about how slick the floor was, and Coach, I don't think they mopped the floor. I'm like, just play the game. It doesn't matter. We're all 10 guys are on the floor at the same time. You're all on the same floor. Don't worry about it. But that gym was packed, and we had our parents there holding up signs, and they had their fans, and then there was a lot of people, just DC people that wanted to be at the game that love basketball.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you remember this one play, but Ty Lawson broke somebody down, goes through the lane, elevates to go to dunk, and he got hit on his arm, and he hit the back rim, but he gets 2 free throws. And people sitting courtside ran onto the floor like, oh my gosh. And I remember, again, this is my first television game of my career. And I remember saying, that was for a missed dunk. If he actually threw that in, what would the reaction have been? Like, it was so incredible. And I feel so fortunate that was the first game that I ever called. It set the bar really high to match it. And then I called a bunch of your games afterwards, and our relationship just kind of expanded to the point where we play golf together. We go on trips. You've stayed at my house before, and it's just so cool to hear these stories and see how this has gone on. And I even look behind you right now, all those pictures. My question is, you mentioned Rod Strickland being at your house all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Do you still talk to these guys?
I'm close to Rod. Maybe, I wouldn't say closer than anybody else, but he's one of the guys I'm the closest with. Probably just because he's one of the first guys, and he was at my house so much, and we got to develop a relationship. And he's probably, he's close to, he's between 55 and 60 years old now. And I still talk to him about his teams at Long Island, and we text and so forth to stay connected. Yeah, there's very few guys that, you can't keep up with everybody that you coached, but there's very few guys that I can think of that I don't have a good relationship with, that we don't still talk. And I've had players say, yeah, you were my second dad, or had some of them say, I didn't have a dad. You were my only dad, which has nothing to do with basketball, really. Just that you cared about them and you spent time with them and coached them. And it's different at Oak Hill because you live with them 24/7. And, which I always liked. That was part of the job that I liked, being around the guys and getting to know them and their families, and more than just coaching them from 3 to 5 like you do at a public school. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm glad I had the chance to coach at Oak Hill all those years. And that's probably one of the main reasons I never left. I just felt like I could influence players in the right way, have more of an effect, in their lives because they were young people, and you're living on campus with them and spending time with them. We eat in the cafeteria. We went to the Baptist church on campus together, and we'd go bowling together. We'd do everything together. We'd hang out at my house together. And now I play golf with some of them. They're not very good, but they back then they would always go, why do you like to play golf, Coach? And that once they get out, they start playing a couple celebrity scrambles or whatever, and they get addicted to it. And then they realize how hard it is to play
Yep.
and hit that little white thing. And so that's kind of fun too. Some of them are pretty good players though, but they've got to be good golfers because they played a lot. But then there's others that can't hit it at all. But they're fun to play with just because you remember that you start telling stories and hanging out and having a good time, and it means more to you than actually playing the golf.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's about, right? Because you get these guys out there on the golf course, and you got 4 hours together, and maybe a couple of beverages at the 19th hole together afterwards, and you're like, man, you get to reminisce, and it's so much fun. I never asked this question to you. In all our years being friends, were you ever offered a head coaching
Not a
job
head job.
in college?
When I was, I can think back, because everybody asked me, who offered you a job? I had players early on go to Pittsburgh. I had 3 guys at Pitt one year, in 1990, and Paul Evans offered me the job up there twice to be his assistant, and I didn't do that. My first offer was like I'd been at Oak Hill 2 years, and L.B. Smith left to go to South Carolina. He was assistant at VCU, and he called me and said, "You want my job?" Coach Mike Polio was the coach at VCU at the time. He said he wants to hire you. So that was I'd only been at Oak Hill 2 years, and I was on vacation in Hilton Head. I flew up there, and but I heard that he may be on the chopping block. But Tubby told me he had 2 years left, so I didn't take the job. And this was in August, and he got fired in December. So I realized how the business was kind of cutthroat. And but I remember at VCU, Pitt, Jerry Green offered me a job at Oregon. Denny Crum offered me a job at I almost went to Louisville because I was from Kentucky. I grew up in Kentucky, but I grew up near Lexington. So I was a Kentucky fan, not a Louisville fan.
Right. So that would have been like sacrilegious for you.
Denny offered me a job in like 97. I think he retired a couple years later. So I never felt like it was the right time. My daughter was a rising senior when that's the job I almost left for Louisville. And she was a rising senior, and she didn't want me to, she wanted me there for homecoming and be there for all the, senior activities. And I ended up not taking it just basically for her. And, cause I was ready to go. I was down there looking at houses and everything. And, but that's the last job. I never entertained another job after that. I was about 40, I think it was like 42 or 3 at the time. So when I did that, I just ended up, I said, I'm going to stay at Oak Hill. And I never talked to anybody about a job after that. I never really did talk to them prior to that. They offered me jobs, but I never had a job interview except at Oak Hill. Those coaches just offered me flat out, said, if you want to come, here's what we pay you, and you'll be a full-time assistant. But so I think they saw me coach and they were around me. So I guess that was my interview. I don't know. More so than,
The real part was the fact that you're like, wait, see, when I recruit, they just call me. You want me to go out on the road and try to recruit these guys? No, that's not how I work.
I won't name the coach, but one coach offered me a job, and the last question he asked me, he said, now you'll do what you have to do to get a player, right? Well, I'm not stupid. I know what that meant. And I'd never done that, obviously, at Oak Hill. That's part of the reason I retired when I retired, because I got tired of parents asking for this and for that. And can we get a hotel room? Can we get this? I just never, you're right. I am an old school coach. When that guy said that, I walked out. I'm like, don't think I can take this job, because I didn't want to get in the middle of that. And obviously I knew what he did to get players. So that was a job I didn't take, obviously. And I don't even remember what I said back to him. I was like floored when he said it. I was like, oh gosh, I got myself in something I don't want to be in the middle of. Most guys would have said, fine, yeah, I'll do it, coach. But that wasn't me. So
yeah.
I'm glad I stayed at Oak Hill for 39 years and was the head coach for 37 years. I'm glad I coached, and not many coaches coach in the same place that long and stay at one school. They're usually jumping around trying to, find a better job. And I never felt that there was a better job than the one I had.
And no coach who coaches in Mouth of Wilson, Virginia, or in a cold climate has a better tan than you did.
I'd always sneak out and play golf, and I always vacation at the beach too. Yeah.
Smart. Hey, Coach, when you think people think of Oak Hill and they think of a player, who's the player that you think gets
Carmelo, I
mentioned
think,
first?
because he was there. I mean, his jersey gets sold by Nike, and his Oak Hill jersey. So I still see it in gyms. When I go to a game, I'll see a guy wearing a Oak Hill 22 jersey. I'm like, man, that's 20 some years ago, and people still wearing those things. And it might not even be a Carmelo game. It might not be a game he's playing in, but I still see it. And so, I mean, I would think Carmelo's probably the guy that most people associate Oak Hill with.
Yeah. No, I was wondering that. I thought Carmelo too,
Yeah.
because it's in commercials, and I mean, you're wearing the Jordan brand logo,
And
Oak
even like
Hill,
when you
Jordan
see
brand
LeBron,
school.
you always see
Um,
LeBron, Carmelo playing in high school. So I mean, that got a lot of traction for a lot of years when we played those guys. And Melo, I think Melo, most people always say, well, Carmelo went to your school. Carmelo, when I see people, where'd you coach? I coached at Oak Hill. You probably never heard of the place. And then they'll go, oh, yeah, Carmelo Anthony went there. So he's the one I hear the most. His name comes up.
yeah. When you look back at your career, obviously, I think, like you said, being at one place the whole time is an incredible accomplishment. What are you
Uh,
most proud of?
Not really. I mean, I'm proud of our record and all the games that we won there and the success we had. But I always tell people it's the relationship that I had with the players, and I still have with the players. And it's not like I just had it when they were there. Um, I got guys calling me now. They make a life decision. They still call me. They're 45 years old, some of them. Coach, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I'm trying to get into this business. I'm trying to do this. I'm looking at this job. So I mean, that part of it to me is why I coached anyway. And obviously, any coach wants to win every game every year. It's not reality, but some years it was for us because we had such good teams. But um, it's more the relationship you have with the players, and I see those guys now. I coached late in my career. I coached a couple guys, sons that played for me, and I'm thinking that's when I knew I was old. So when I'm coaching one of the players' sons,
Yes,
I've been around a long
it's
time.
so
I'm a
scary.
dinosaur. So
It's all right. So who are some of the players'
Ben Davis, I don't
sons
know if
that
you
you
remember Ben
coached?
Davis. Ben was from 1991 graduate. He played with Junior Burrow and Corey Alexander, and really good team.
Okay.
I think it
Uh-huh.
was my second team that was undefeated. We were like 27-0 that year, and Ben was a McDonald's All American, and Corey was. Junior was a Parade All American. But Ben's son came and played for me. He wasn't near the player that Ben was, but and Ben knew it. But Ben goes, Coach, he needs to play for you. You can make him into a player. I'm like, we'll see. He's not. I said, Ben, he's not you now. He's not. No, Ben was really, really good, and I don't think Ben knew how good he was. Ben played Kansas and Arizona in college, and then played in the NBA. So now he's coaching. Ben called me about 3 weeks ago, said he wanted to get into coaching, and he was been approached by some AAU teams, and so now he's coaching AAU. But he just asked me what I thought, and I knew the guys he was talking to, so um, he'll be a fine coach. But he's 50 years old now. It's unbelievable.
Right.
Wants to start coaching when he's 50, but been doing other things. He's had a good life, and made a lot of money with jobs, and he made money playing pro basketball. But now he wants to be a coach, so he doesn't care if he gets a dime. He told me, he goes, I just want to coach kids, and that's a neat part too, because I think that came down hopefully from me, and he respected me as his coach, and
Yeah,
he
I
wants
was
to
just
coach
thinking
too.
that.
So makes you feel good, makes you feel like you're doing something worthwhile.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. As soon as you said that, I said, I wonder if that's Ben saying, you know what? Like Coach Smith had this huge impact on me. Now it's my turn to give back and try to help somebody else. And I think there's a lot to that. So I think that's what you should be really proud of. The fact that these guys, all these years
Yeah.
later, are still contacting you, texting you, calling you, asking for advice. You're not just a coach on the basketball court, you're a coach for life. And that's pretty special. But I like to do a segment on this podcast called This Just In,
Okay.
and it's rapid fire. Okay. So I'm going to throw these questions out to you, and I just want to know your answer. Best point guard you ever coached.
Oh, Rod Strickland, Rajon Rondo, Rod and Rajon.
Why?
I know
You're
these
like
guys.
Rod Rondo.
They'll end up watching these podcasts and they'll be like, "Coach, what about me?" But they both played like 18 years in the NBA. But I just think of Rod because he was like a pioneer. You know, it's back in 1985, and the guy was, you know, the way he could handle the ball. I mean, he had that thing on a string, and he was so smart too. And Rondo's very similar, so it's hard to separate. But I'd say Rod.
Okay. Best player you ever coached against?
LeBron.
When you saw LeBron, what was your
A
reaction?
freak of nature. I saw him when he was a sophomore. He's 15 years old. This probably was like 1999, maybe 98. So I'd never seen him. Never saw him on film. Never saw anything. Scouted him somehow, but I know we didn't scout him by film. I remember that. I'd never seen him till we walked on the court and he was warming up, and I'm like, whoa. I mean, he's 6'8". Well, he probably weighed 225, 230. And he's a 15-year-old sophomore. And he's laying the ball up in the warm-up line with his armpit on the rim, and I'm going, whoa, this is not normal. And then we played the game, and he had 33 points, and we barely survived. He started with 5. It was he and 4 sophomores. So it's 5 sophomores against 5 seniors.
Right.
And we won by 1 point. And we had one of the best teams I ever coached. That's how good he was, even at that young age. I mean, he was just a man out there.
Kevin Durant, you coached him. You said he left, he wanted to stay. How special of a player was he when he was with you? Did he exceed expectations in his NBA career for you?
Probably, because he was about 6'8", weighed about 170 pounds when I coached him. I mean, he was thin as a rail. He's still thin, but stronger than he looks. And I knew he was good, and he had those long arms. He could really shoot threes, and but I didn't know. You know, when you're looking at him, you're thinking, "Oh, this guy's gonna be pretty good." But you know, I wasn't sure. I mean, I just had Melo a couple years earlier, and he was a full-grown man in high school. So I was thinking at the time, but I did tell people I think he's going to be as good or better than Carmelo, and people thought I was crazy. Well, I don't think they think I'm crazy now. So, yeah. But, I mean, I didn't know he was going to do what he did as a freshman in college, you know, set all kinds of records and break every record in the Big 12 and go into the pros and, you know, be an all-star right away. I didn't think that was going to happen.
And by the way, bringing this full circle, think about who his first coach in the NBA was.
Oh, yeah.
PJ Carlissimo.
How about that? Yeah.
So all those years later, after PJ was on your campus, he was coaching Kevin Durant, and he made Kevin Durant a 2-guard his rookie year. And it was like, wait, what? You're going to have like a 7-foot 2-guard? Are you kidding? And yeah. Okay, so I just have a couple more questions in this just in segment. You're a huge golfer. That's one of the reasons why you and I have become so close. Favorite golf course you've ever played?
Augusta National. Augusta National. I shot 77.
What'd you shoot?
Yeah, I shot 77. Now, remember tees. You can only play when you play there. They don't let you play any tee, but
I know
there's only one set of tees during normal play. Yep. So I remember going to the Masters in like 1975. And they played those tees. That's how they had the persimmon clubs, and I remember where the tees were. So they played about 6,600 yards, maybe. I slapped it around. I birdied 10 and 16. I had to chip in on 10 because it's a long hole, and I'd missed the green. But I hold the chip, and then I knocked it in on 16. It was on the left like it always is on Sunday, and the ball rolled down there about a foot from the hole. If I'd have made a hole-in-one, I might have retired from golf. So I made 2 birdies. That helps. When you make a couple birdies, it helps your score. But there it's
what year
2017.
What year was it that you played?
Yeah. So I still had shoulders that didn't hurt, and I could hit the ball decent yardage-wise. So I don't know what I'd shoot out there now. It'd be a little.
Are you allowed to tell me who
I
took
got
you?
on because of a friend, a college coach, who had the general manager there was a grad of his school, and so that's how I got on. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to name names to get trouble.
Love it. Yeah. It's a secret society. You don't say anything. Career low
63.
on the golf course.
I shot when I first moved to Oak Hill.
Where-
I played in college and I played in state AMs and state opens, and I played the Eastern Amateur and some of these national amateur tournaments. So I was decent. I just graveled scratch. So when I first moved to Oak Hill, I played all those courses in that area, and I remember shooting 63 at Withfield Country Club, and I shot a 64 at Jefferson Landing, where was my home course. The lowest round in the tournament was a 66 in an actual tournament. I can't even scare that now, but that was 45 years ago. So, and back then I played all the time. That's all I did was play golf and coach. So, but once I got into coaching at Oak Hill, I didn't play as much. And so my handicap would slowly go up. So I just try to break 85. I just try to break 80. I just try to break 85 now.
Yeah, that's what you say. And then you go out on a short course and you light people up.
I haven't moved up
no
senior
hard
teams, but I'm ready
all.
to.
No, I'm just saying, I remember when we were out in Wisconsin and you and TD, Tony Dorado, one of the greatest guys from Nike, we played on the par 3 course, and you guys were like, let's go greenies, and oh my gosh, you guys just crushed us.
Old men have a short game.
I'll never do that again. Never, ever do that again. Okay, so in college basketball in all your years, who was the best coach golfer?
Oh, man, the best one I played with, you'd be shocked. I would say Nolan Richardson. Most people don't know he played. I didn't know he played, but one day he showed up. He said, let's play golf. And we go over to my course, and he takes like 3 swings. I mean, he literally didn't even hit balls. He shot like 74. And I was like, whoa, this guy can play. And Jim Boeheim.
You're like, forget about 40 minutes of hell. Jesus.
Very good. I mean, he hit the ball. It sounded like, there's different sounds when guys hit the ball. And he hit the ball like, you knew when he hit it, he knew what he was doing. And hit it with a slight draw. And I would have never guessed he was a golfer. I just didn't think he played. But he said, yeah, I play golf. So I don't remember what I shot that day, but I mean, he was very, very good. And there's other guys, but I know this is supposed to be a short answer, so I'll just say no.
No, I love it. I love it. Honestly, Coach, this was so much fun. Hearing the stories about these guys. The one that sticks out to me again is the fact that Kevin Garnett wanted to come and play.
I was.
And no, you know what? Not you. Your president, like that guy.
I couldn't get him by him.
Mistake.
I knew if he wasn't happy, I knew it wasn't going to work out. So I didn't have a choice.
That's honestly, it's unbelievable. And also Allen Iverson. I mean, geez, if you have Garnett and Iverson combined with all those other players that you've had at Oak Hill, you have a Hall of Fame.
I would have had Garnett the same year I had Ron Mercer. Ron won the Naismith Award. Kevin got USA Day Player of the Year. I would have had them on the same team. Yeah.
And then Ron went to Kentucky and won a national title
his freshman year
with Kentucky.
And he made all tournaments as a freshman, all Final Four. I mean, he was really good too. And they were friends. I mean, they knew each other. They would have been fine playing together, but didn't work out.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? This definitely worked out. I'm so happy it did. Thank you for taking the time. I know people are going to love hearing these stories, and maybe we'll do it again because I have a sneaking suspicion you've got even more stories in that head of yours. But Coach Steve Smith, you're a Hall of Famer in my book, man. Thank you for doing this. We appreciate it. And get that shoulder better so we can get back out in the course. I am not giving you any shots. I'm not giving you any shots.
We got to get that thing worked on
so I can
that
right now.
Hang with you still.
Yeah, that'd be great. Coach, thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon.